All right, I want to welcome you back to another session of Dirty Talk. I am your host, Dirty Cuttz, and I'm here with the special guest. She's back for the second time. She's activist in the community, also an educator,
Yes,
and what is
state
it, representative,
state
state
representative.
representative,
Yeah,
North Carolina 72 district.
good job.
All right, I got it. Okay, so I would like to welcome Miss Dr. Amber Baker. All right. Let's get down to the nitty gritty.
I'm prepared this time. You see, I'm dressed, got my hair, hat,
Yeah, you ready?
face.
Okay. Yeah, we
Okay,
ready for war. Okay.
y'all had me walk into a, y'all said podcast, but y'all didn't say podcast with video.
Right.
So I wasn't looking
That was my bad.
the way
You
I should have been looking. But I'm ready
you
today.
ready today?
Yeah,
Okay, that's what's up.
got my war clothes on.
Okay, so look, the first question we're gonna jump on off the boat into the ocean. Do we need to get back home? Do we need to leave here?
I'm getting that question a lot lately, and I'm gonna say this: if you want to go back home, then that's your prerogative. But the way I was raised, don't let nobody run you off from something that's rightfully yours.
I know that right.
And so, it's a tough time, but this is not unfamiliar territory to us. When has life for us ever been easy?
Right.
So, I mean, we've gotten so far removed from what the hustle is about because we've experienced a little bit better taste of life. But we know how to hustle. We know how to
Right.
stick together. We know how to, be our brother's keeper again. And I think in some ways, these next years or so are going to help us as a people
Right.
because we have been um, operating like white folks for so long, and they're all about individuality. We're
Mm.
about community. We're about village, and so um, you want to get some land in Ghana, or Tanzania, sure, but don't feel like you need to run off.
Got you. I
Yeah.
got you. So, do you think it's more of a fear mongering thing? We just feeling everybody else's fear, and I mean, and outside of the black community, you think we just feeling their fear? They putting their fear on us again.
I think so. I think, if you're of a certain age, and, I don't mind telling you, I'm over 60. So,
Mm.
I came through some of the most turbulent times in a period in our history. And, our community stuck strong.
Right.
We were gun toters. And a lot of people don't know the reason why we have gun laws is because the Black Panthers openly carried guns to protect the community. And so they put those gun restrictions in place because you look at some of the older pictures and they're in capitals. Matter of fact, Ronald Reagan was the person who first implemented gun control because of the Panthers. So I'm gonna say this. I think everybody should have their well, now we just passed some legislation. You don't even need a permit.
Permit, yeah, right.
You don't even
Uh,
need, right. You don't need, so you can just go get you a gun. But I would encourage everybody be prepared to protect your property.
Strap it up.
Yep. And it's if you haven't done some research, we got a black owned gun range in Charlotte, I think it
Oh,
is.
okay, about time.
We got a black owned place where you can take your classes, and I was looking it up, and I think it's right like on Akron or somewhere, but Google it. Just put in gun control, I mean black gun shops, um black gun classes, and let's be intentional about spending our money in the places that we know is about us.
Okay. So, I want to piggyback off of the last conversation we had. I know we were talking about redlining
Hmm.
in the community. So, what I want to know is that was there any success in implementing the money where it's supposed to be in the city of Winston-Salem, as far as
Y'all
the
gonna have
last disbursement?
y'all gonna have me going all over the place. Y'all got me going to the city, to the national. I
Yeah.
can tell you, I followed that, right? I'm just kind of at the state level, but I will tell you, if the money had gone to where it needed to go, you wouldn't have people at Crystal Towers and at Sunrise Towers downtown fighting just to get money brought into their buildings so that they can have water and they can have heat and they can have a decent place to live. So I can tell you from what I followed, the money still hadn't gone to where it needs to go. And we gave them money from the state to be able to start some of this. So I do know that they have started the screening process for these contractors to get some of these lots and homes. And I don't use the term affordable because it depends on who you're talking to. Um, because what's affordable for some is not affordable for all. But these individuals are gonna, if they are able to get this land and houses that the city owns, they're going to be required to build workforce housing, single family workforce housing. So you have some movement, but we know more movement could occur. It didn't take them long to build up downtown,
Right.
and they built it up without any regard for what I'm now calling downtown East, because there is no more East Winston.
So I want to ask you a question. Is I was looking at the history of Gaddafi
Hmm.
and how he had no homeless person
Hmm.
in what is it? Is it
Liberia.
Liberia
Yeah.
that he ran?
Libya. I'm sorry, Libya.
Libya. I'm
Libya.
sorry, Libya. There was no homelessness.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? And he had set aside money for people that wanted to buy homes when they got a chance to buy homes and stuff like that. Is there a way that we can do that as well, considering that we're one of the most richest countries in the world?
Absolutely. I saw a clip of Tupac. It's kind of circulating on social media. And again, I'm old enough to remember when he first said it, right? And I remember that being a shot heard around the world. And he was like, you know, with as many people as we have in this country, with the amount of money
They got
that
money for
they
war.
earn. Well,
Can't feed the poor.
he was talking about individual wealth, and he was talking, and since then that has grown exponentially. So, like he said, how many planes do you really need? How many homes do you really need when we have people that are homeless? We have people who can't feed their children. So it's not a matter of if we have enough money to eradicate homelessness. It's a matter of will, and we know Americans are greedy. And so we're built on a society where you have the haves and the have nots. But I don't remember if I told you this the last time I was here. If you have not watched the series, The Men That Built America, it talks about Rockefeller and Vanderbilt and J.P. Morgan, Edison. They talk about the five
Five
richest.
major families.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so in there, when they talk about the protest of the workers and why we now have the regulations that we have and why we now have 8-hour work days and why we have unions. We're back at that place because they became so greedy trying to hoard all the wealth on the backs of the people who was making that wealth that the people rose up. So at some point we're going to see um, this constant pressure is going to explode, and it's not going to be nice because people are tired, they're frustrated, they're angry, and they have the right to be all that. I always say, you know, um, I don't care how much money you make, but you just don't get to do it on the backs of the people who are making you that money.
That's
So I'm not against um, us as America being built on you make as much money as you can, but we need to do it with respect. And that problem is right here in Winston. You can't continue to build up certain places while neglecting other parts of the city. And oftentimes, I think I talked to you the last time about my district. I, downtown is part of my district, right? I only have a small sliver of East Winston, but I got Buena Vista, I got Ardmore. Yeah, Ardmore. I got Country Club, Robin Hood. So some of the most affluent voters in our city. And what I say to them is, as long as you continue to think about violence and about homelessness and about some of the things that we're seeing that impacts our community, as long as you keep saying and thinking that as the other, you keep living. and it's gonna show up at your door, right? And so that's what we're experiencing. When the brother got killed downstairs on downtown on Burke Street, how quickly did the mayor convene a whole committee and stayed and wanted to hear what those business people had to say? But I've been in at least 3 community meetings where he's done a drive-by. He's
Mm,
came, talked about it, but I got to get somewhere else. He didn't sit and stay. So you can't be the mayor to 2 communities. You got to be the mayor to the entire community, and that's what we're seeing.
gotcha. Now, just recently, President Trump had signed the segregation bill.
Mhm.
How do you feel about that?
So, and some people not gonna like what I said, and I'm going to say, but desegregation was the death of our community.
Anyway. Go ahead.
And so, if we think about the number of vibrant communities, see, we hear a lot about Wall Street. Every now and again, you'll hear about Wilmington. You know, most people almost
Rosewood.
right, right. So, Greenwood was not an anomaly. In fact, there were a number of very prosperous black communities because we didn't have a choice but to support our black businesses because they weren't letting us shop at their shops. We couldn't eat at their restaurants. We couldn't go to their hospitals. And so everything about segregation wasn't bad. And as a matter of fact, because of how prosperous black people were supporting other black people, that's why they destroyed it. And in some instances, a lot of people don't know. I had an opportunity to go to Tulsa a couple of years ago. They rebuilt Greenwood twice, Black
Mm.
Wall Street. And after the second time, they decided to totally destroy it, not unlike what we seen in Winston, and they ran an interstate through there. So
Oh
they
wow.
ensured that it would not be rebuilt the third time. So, everything about segregation is not bad. Our schools, we're still educating students, and we know this
Hmm.
that we often are forced to do more with less. But when we do it, when we stick together, that's why I said initially, it is going to take us re engaging each other and taking some pride about how we're living, how we're um, how we're doing business. Because come on, black folks, you want people to come and support you, but we need to be about business. We need to make sure that we're creating a quality product worth being, paid. We gotta save our money. So, I done got 2 requests from people who want to go cruising. Baby, are you watching the news? We need
This
to
is not the
this
time.
is not the time. You better cruise on in your backyard, get a little kiddie pool and and pretend.
Right.
We need to
Go to
hold that
Myrtle
core
Beach
right.
somewhere.
If that. I mean, and I'm not stoking the fear. If you got money and you think you can do what you can do and you don't think this is gonna touch you, my message to you is like it is for my constituents who live on the other side of town. It is going to touch every last one of us. And so how much you feel, it will depend on where you are financially. But it will touch you, right?
Gotcha.
We got to make sure we got a little money in our black owned banks. And we need to hold our black owned banks accountable to lending to us again, right?
Gotcha.
But everybody should have at least $100 account at Mechanics and Farmers so that you can go into that bank and ask for a loan.
And that's right here, right on 311. I mean,
Yes,
Martin Luther
Martin
King. I'm
Luther
sorry.
King. And so, if you and your podcast reach people all over the place. So if you haven't done your research, you need to find a black owned bank and you need to belong to the credit union. It don't take a lot of money and don't say, I can't afford that. Money is a matter of priority. So maybe you don't, women, maybe we don't get our hair done. That's $100 plus. Your nails is the basic pedicure is
Jordans.
$55. The fellas, I know I'm sitting in the barber shop, but I know a good barber, your cut, your edge up, your
Hmm.
it's
Two
y'all
cuts, two, one or two cuts.
right, right,
You in there.
right. So all I'm saying is, hear me. We need to be sitting on our money. We need to find opportunities to check out these land grant um, um, holdings for land. Let's purchase us a piece of land. If we don't have to go back, we can find a good piece of land and build a community right
Right.
there on 20 acres of land.
That's what the rapper Killer Mike is doing down in
Yeah.
Atlanta. He had got a total of 92 families,
Hmm.
and they all went in, pitched in, and bought some land and created their own city down
Yeah.
there,
So we
right outside of Atlanta.
again, and so the blueprint is out there. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. And they not gonna tell you about this. They're not gonna tell you about land banking. They're not gonna tell you, how to go out there and, get 50, 60, 70 acres of land for little or nothing. Um, and I can't remember if we talked about this, but that was one of the reasons I ran, because it now puts me in the room to hear about these things and bring these things back to the community, saying, look, we can do this. we
Gotcha.
we are a brilliant people. And I think that we have begun to internalize the messaging that we're not enough, we're not smart enough, we're not business savvy enough, we're not entrepreneurial enough, we're not pretty enough, we're just not enough. When in reality, that's a
We're
lie.
more than enough.
More than enough,
Right.
right? Because if we were those things, they wouldn't work so hard trying to tell us that we're not those things. So we've got to switch our mindset and again start to think kingly, priestly, right?
Let me ask you something. If you agree with me, uh, I know we talked about the gun, protecting ourselves, and us building our own community
Yes,
and segregation.
yes.
So during those segregation times when they did take that from us, do you believe that the key thing that we were missing was an army of protection, like a Black Panther at that time? Say if there was a Black Panther movement in Tulsa at the time, would it have got to that point?
I think there was a couple of things. I just don't think we were prepared for that, right? I think we wanted access. We didn't want our communities destroyed. We wanted money. We didn't want our schools integrated, but we wanted more funding so that our children could have the best. With redlining, we wanted to be able to live wherever we wanted to live, um, but we understood that we still needed to build community. So if you think about where all of these projects are now, Piedmont Circle's scheduled to have something. Cleveland's done. Those homes originally were not built for us. A lot of people don't know that. A lot of the communities where the projects are, those were not built for us. Those were built for white people after the war. And as black folks started to move into the community and white flight moved out, so went the resources, so went everything that upkept those communities, and then that's where we landed and was housed. So I don't think we were prepared for the devastation um, that we suffered from buying in to integration. We lost a lot of our key figures, and I say it is because they had hit on something. If you think about it, when Brother Malcolm was killed, he had moved away from, what I call FUBU, for us, by us, right? When he came back from Mecca, he started to say, wait a minute, I done prayed with a brother whose eyes was as blue as the ones that I had encountered here, and whose skin was as white as I encountered here, but yet we prayed together. And so he began to talk about inclusiveness. He talked about now figuring out how we could work together to dismantle this system of racism. Same thing with Martin. When Brother Martin was killed, right? The Poor People Campaign was about moving outside of the black community and now joining arm in arm with white people to get what we needed. So I believe, and I could be wrong, that was one of the reasons that both of them needed to go. Because as long as you was, we shall overcome, you're not no threat. you start talking about mobilizing people that are outside of the community, both of them became a threat. So both of them had to go. When those two giants went, they didn't have an opportunity to build a succession plan.
You know what eggs me? Why are we such a threat? If y'all don't like us, don't want us around us, but your blood suck off of us, all our resources, all our talent, all our creativeness, but you don't. You just want to keep your foot on our neck.
You answered your own question. You answered your own question. They
I
hate.
just don't get that mentality. That's what I meant to say.
Well, again, this is not thus saith the Lord. You won't find it in the Bible, right? This is thus saith Amber, a woman who loves the Lord and who professes to be a Christian. But whenever you ever seen white dirt,
No.
so if God created the original mankind from the dirt of the earth, and we know that that dirt was in Africa, we know some of the richest soil and land, period. We represent the original creation. So every black and so don't make it about people, make it about spirit, right? So the enemy, every time they see a black man walking or a black woman walking, it's a constant reminder of God's greatest creation on this earth. And so when you're when you as a white person are walking truly in the spirit realm, we're not a threat, right? But think about that. Every time you step in a room, you're a reminder to those, it irritates the spirit on the white folks. That's why we're blessed. That's why we're resilient. Because they were talking about that today in church. That God blew into the original man who was made from the dirt of the earth, who we know came from Africa. That's why we're fabulous. That's why we want to be emulated. That's why we're hated. Because in the spirit realm, we represent God's perfection. And I haven't had an opportunity to go to Africa, but when I have had an opportunity to talk to our brothers and sisters from over there, and their mentality about their own value and worth is off the charts. So that's why, if you look at it not just in terms of black and white, you look at it in terms of, don't just look at it in terms against man and woman, but you know that in the end, what I believe is everything we're encountering is spiritual.
Okay. How do you feel about Elon Musk
Let me say this.
and his position?
What I need people to do is stop talking about him. We didn't elect him, so we need to be talking about Donald Trump and Donald Trump's person that he appointed. Because we didn't elect him. We care what he does, but we need to be holding Donald Trump accountable. So when we keep talking about Doge and we keep talking about Elon Musk, we are not pointing the finger at the person who's responsible for all of this.
Gotcha.
Right? And if we're not transparent, and I'm getting my floor debate because um, they have passed a diversity, equity, inclusion bill out of the Senate. So it's coming to the House. So I'm working on my floor speech right now. And this is what we need people to understand. First, we were talking about critical race theory. And when people started to understand that it wasn't what they were trying to tell them it was, they had to flip gears because people couldn't relate to critical race theory.
Right.
We know diversity, equity, inclusion, and so they're trying to make it about us. But the number one beneficiary of that is white women, right?
Mm-hmm.
Number one beneficiary of Medicaid and food stamps, white women. But they're trying to make it about us because that's what's going to incense women. I mean, incense people.
Gotcha.
Would he has done is, you say meritocracy, right? It's supposed to be able to get the job based on the most qualified person. And we don't want anybody standing but white men. Because white women, you got to go. Blacks, you got to go. LGBTQ, you got to go, right? Everybody got to go but white men. But you have Elon Musk, South African, born and raised in apartheid. So you know his mind's, he's trying to set up his own South African apartheid. You got Cash Patel, Indian. You got J.D. Vance, married to an Indian woman. We have to connect dots for people. You put all of these diverse, unqualified people in positions which was once held by qualified black folks, qualified women, and so white women in particular. Y'all don't think they coming for you? They really coming for you. Because see, we as people of color are already getting ready to be the majority of population. So they need white women back home having babies, taking care of children. Abortion wasn't about black women. If it was about us, right, then they wouldn't care if we killing our babies, it, lest they have to kill in the streets. So we need people to put on their thinking cap. And that's why white women, y'all can stay at home and, my husband knows what's best. Okay. Well, it's going to be a whole lot more of you joining you at the crib, rolling back voting rights. That is about us, but it's about them. Voting about equity, ERA, all of that. Really, we're collateral damage.
Gotcha. Because actually, they rode the wave on the civil rights movement.
Correct, but
And
you
that's
have to
what
keep
really
it
basically started.
correct. Correct. Okay. Correct. But I'm telling people, y'all need to do two things at once. It's okay, you know. I understand people wanting to pay attention to what's going on in DC. But I've always said the closest the politics are to you, the more it affects your life. So you can keep your eye over here, but you need to keep your eye on what's happening at the state. Because we as a state are kind of the forefront of all of this bad legislation. So if it can move in North Carolina, you're going to see it popping up in other states. So we've already passed out of the Senate the diversity, equity, inclusion bill, right? You got a bill that is moving on the Senate side and in the queue on the House side to now criminalize people who do voter registration. Um, you also, we have our own uh, bill, deportation bill. And so I sit on the oversight committee, which is the same committee at the national level that Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett sits on. And I said, I don't know,
Jasmine Crockett.
I don't know what they were thinking to put me on that committee. So I'm on that committee. I'm on election reform.
How do you feel about that young lady?
She's amazing. And I've always said, and I've said it down there, both in my caucus and on the floor. What people of Winston Salem sent me to do was to fight, and what they sent her to do was to fight. Right? People want to know. We may not be able to change anything, but just because we may not be able to change anything, part of our responsibility is to fight. And in fighting, you're educating people, which can mobilize a movement. And so we got to pray for her. We got to, and people who are listening, it takes money to run. So you need to give money to her. You need to give money to me. You need to give money to people who are doing the work if you want us to go back. But she is amazing.
Gotcha.
And here's the thing about us, black women. We are the most educated people in America. They just want her to shut up, because she lets them know just how unqualified they are to sit in that seat. So, MTG, I don't know why you keep coming for her. You don't even have enough words in your very limited vocabulary to come for her with her eyes closed, hands tied behind her back, and you take half her vocabulary. You still can't beat her down there. I'm not scared. If here's the thing, every 2 years I come before people to say, give me another opportunity to run and represent you, right? If you say I'm not it and you decide with your vote, you're gonna go with another candidate, I'm not mad. It's your right. That's how it works. So I don't play those games up there. Let me try to situate myself to make sure I get to come back. No, I'm gonna come in my full self, 10 toes down, fighting as hard as I can. And at whatever time people say no more, that's their right. But I'm. Mm-mm.
Okay. So, why you been in the educational field over 25 years now?
I made
Um,
my 30 this year, so
Age of
yeah.
30. Okay.
Mhm.
I'm only in it for like 4 years now. Okay, so
Yeah,
I'm a baby in this thing.
yeah. But we need
However,
you.
however,
Yeah.
yeah, they do need me, and I realize that. But however, I feel that we need more Carter G. Woodsons, more QEAs around here. Is there a possibility that that can happen?
It's about, again, us coming together, right? QEA came out of the church. QEA started as a private school. Then once we introduced charter school legislation, they saw where they had an opportunity to convert from private to charter. Carter G. Woodson, Dr. Hazel Mack, again, took advantage of charter school legislation and started Carter G. Woodson.
Mm.
So we lost two really good charter schools, East Winston Primary. Our babies were thriving over there. Charter school, gone. Lift Academy
I
with the
remember
late,
left, yeah.
great Earling Parman. The kids that had not been successful in traditional schools were thriving over there, but now it's gone, right? So that's the long answer, long question to your answer. Yes, we can start more, but until we do that, until we get money together and make sure we're starting quality programs. If vouchers are going to be around, and as long as the Republicans are in charge, they're going to continue to push vouchers because you know what it does? It lets them create their own schools, right? So why wouldn't we create our own schools?
Right.
So I'm a public school educator, but people need to understand this: charters are public schools, and the difference between public traditional schools, public charters, and private schools is the latter can put gatekeeping mechanisms in and say who they're going to take and who they're not going to take.
Okay.
In a charter school, you can't do it. Just like a traditional school, you can't do it. You have to take and educate every child that walks through the door. In every floor debate I've had on vouchers, I said if they are going to take taxpayer dollars and funnel it into private schools, they now should be held accountable to the same standard as public schools. They need to be held accountable for testing, making sure that all their teachers are highly qualified, and making sure that we get a report card on who's in their schools and how are they educating them. They also no longer get to decide that they're going to pick and choose who they want, but they won't do that because really they want these schools of exclusivity. They never wanted the schools to be integrated either.
In a way.
So this is a new way of integrating schools. And that's why they're wanting to dismantle the Department of Education,
Right.
right?
And that was my next question.
Yeah.
How do you feel about them wanting to dismantle
It's
the
bananas
Department of Education?
because most people don't even know what the Department of Education does, and so it's easy for them to say, "Well, yeah, they need to get rid of it." But there goes let's start at the college level. There go your student loans.
Mm.
There goes your
Need to worry
title.
about them.
There go
Them refund checks.
your title programs, Title 6 and 9 that allows that funds women's sports, and you know, then there goes your if your baby has special needs. There goes the extra money that comes into the schools to ensure that they're educating your babies in an equitable way. Again, I'm old enough to remember when our kids with special needs was in the hall, down the hall in the corner, away from the rest of the students. That's what they're wanting to go back to. Um, there goes your Title One money. And for those of you who don't know what Title One money is, it's money that's given to schools that come from I call what I call highly impacted communities, usually high poverty. You have a lot of your children accessing free or reduced lunch. Gone, right? People need to understand you have to do a little bit of research, and now with the internet, it's easy if you take some time to do the research. Don't just take what people are saying and maybe you don't understand it and just think, well, this sounds like a good idea. No, if they talk about dismantling that and pushing it back into the states, that's the whole reason that the Department of Education was created to begin with. And so, and again, it's about, yeah, I could go way deep. Y'all know I love history. It's about creating an uneducated workforce, country, country. So you once you kind of, that's why they're rolling back all the history, and they have the raise the age laws that can now feed our prisons with our 16 and 17-year-olds being charged more harshly than their white counterparts, if at all, for the same crime. Why? Because that prison workforce now becomes the replaces our immigrant brothers and sisters who they're giving a show.
Mm.
You know, they it's real. I mean, they are putting people out of the country, but it's really more to to stoke fear. Because right now in Florida, they trying to tell them, no, 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 we tried that, and our fruit laid rotting in the fields. Our construction industry collapsed. That's not a good move. It almost broke the economy for Florida, because when DeSantis jumped out there, thought that was a good idea, he FAFO, right? So all of that's interrelated. The reason that they're rolling back legislation about children, our babies, being able to work longer hours and working in dangerous jobs. Why? It's about controlling the nation and the people. That's why, again, you know, we don't get no money for this, but it's the History Channel, the men that built America. See, nothing is new in America. We're just recycling when
Right.
America was great again. That's what it is. So people have got to do a little work. You know, I tell young people, man, you can listen to all the music you want to. I need you to educate your mind. I need you to spend a little bit of time.
Right. Yeah, it's a major thing going on, especially with the kids, how they're attacking them
Yeah,
with these video games and
yeah. Well, think
the
about
phones. And
what is
it's
it?
just entertainment in itself.
What's the game that they playing with all the shooting? Um,
Oh, Call of Duty.
Call of Duty. What is that doing? That is predisposing our children to violence. They are. You see what I'm saying? We
Yeah.
don't have a village anymore.
It's kind of like a simulation of them practicing for warfare.
It absolutely is, and it's desensitizing them to death. And then when you destroy the village, right? We don't talk to young people anymore. We talk about them. We talk around them. But actually staying engaged and boots on the ground and being in the village and helping the guy, and we don't do it, right? And I said one day I had 5 stinky boys in my car, and I don't drive a SUV. So it was 4 of them in the back, all on top of each other, like we used to ride when we was in the car. And then my grandson was in the front, and they were. I had some Harris Wall signs in the car, and they was like, "Just throw them out." And we was coming down 311, and I stayed on my grandson about littering, cause he'll throw something out in a minute. Stop it, right? And so they were saying, I was like, stop littering. This is your community. Why would you do that? And so they were like, it's just litter. I was like, yeah, but that's why our communities look so bad. And they were like, why do we care about a community that don't care about us?
Oh wow.
I didn't have no response to that
That's
because they're not lying, right? As the principal of Kimley Park, the reason I fought so hard to put in the sports complex with the football soccer combination and the full court basketball court and the eighth of the mile walking track for our seniors, and the baseball diamond, right? Young people in the Boston Thurman area didn't have nowhere to go to do that. They had taken down the goals over at the rec, and then the rec closes early. So this was the and wasn't open on weekends. So this was to give them some place to be. And I
mhm.
learned that lesson when I taught in the juvenile detention center in Columbus. And when I said to those young men, what do we need to do as adults to keep other young people from ending up here? And they talked to us about nothing for them to do. No basketball courts, no recs. They shut down the recs. They took the summer learning jobs. They took the training programs. And I've held that close to me all these years and tried to lead with that in mind. And again, community. We don't have community. And I tell those of us who Du Bois called the black bourgeoisie, the 10%, those of us that are educated, make good money, you can live wherever you want to live, wherever your money can afford for you to live. That's your business. But you have an obligation to come back into the community that gave you what you
From
needed
whence you
to
came.
come out of that community, right? And for the record, I still live in the hood. I live in one of the hot zones in Winston. And I could have lived anywhere I wanted to live. But I wanted to stay close to the community at that time of my students and my families because I wanted to be their advocate.
So I wanted to piggyback off. I know we talked a little bit about it in the last conversation. Is the North Carolina lottery
Mm.
and how it's supposed to be sponsoring the educational system. How's that working out?
I'm glad you asked that. They just sent me a really nice little NC lottery um, review. Like it's a nice little thick little packet that I haven't had a chance to read yet, and it's supposed to be informing us how much money has been raised and where this money has gone. Um, and so I don't have no exact answer for you right now, but I will say again, locally, the question should be asked at our county commissioners. How much of the 0.5% sales tax that we voted on and passed a couple of years ago that was supposed to go back to the schools, particularly for teacher supplement pay, how much has that generated?
Mm. That was my next question. What are we gonna do about these? I mean, about we're losing good teachers. We're
Yeah.
losing good educators because they're not being compensated and are not. For what we have to for what I've seen through my eyes, um, what these teachers have to deal with on a daily basis, black, white, Chinese,
Yeah.
whatever, it's incredible.
So let me say this. Again, I love saying this. 30 years and most of that time being spent in highly impacted schools. When I first became a teacher, I started out in a Title I school or a highly impacted school. And I remember having a conversation with my mentor, who was a giant in the field of education. And I was saying, my Hoover, it's about money. We need more money. If we had more money, the schools would be better. And I'm having this really, really strong, passionate debate with a woman who was the epitome of do not argue with a fool, right? This woman had been doing it longer than I had, and she just kept saying, "Dear heart, it's about more than money," right? And I just didn't have enough experience and understanding. And now, 30 years later, I get it. Much of what we're encountering in schools is not just about money, right? It's about outside structures that impact the work that we do. And by that, I mean in this particular district, we're housing our children who need to be in integrated session in integrated um, situations. This is a little different, right? Because you have um, a high concentration of poverty. And so these kids only bring their similar experiences and their similar mindset, which now makes it really hard for people to touch. I mean, teaching there. So in those communities, you have parents that are underemployed. So they're sometimes working 2 or 3 jobs, which means that sometimes they're not going to be at home, not because they're out at the club or running the streets, no matter what people in the community might say, but because they're trying to provide for their families. They're living in substandard housing, which we know is overpriced, and then every 2 to 3 months they're having to move. So now home life is unstable. Um, you have lack of access to what we're calling social entitlements, access to quality health care, access to workforce development and training, access to pathways out of poverty. So when you add that to the fact that our teachers are underpaid, um, and they're not getting the additional training that they need to stay on top of their skills. You have leadership. People, people love the superintendent. So let me say right now, I don't like or dislike her, but it's about holding people accountable, and you need to do that without making it about personality. And so that lack of leadership is contributing to the dysfunction. You have a school board that doesn't understand their job. That's contributing. So you have a number of factors that's contributing to why teachers who love what they do have to leave the field. They can go work at Sheets, work a regular 40-hour job, you
Right.
know, but their soul won't be fed because they're called to teaching. So financially, we've got to do better. But we also have got to begin to address all of those other issues that impact our schools. That's why you can have a Kimberly Park and a Whitaker that's just over a mile away. One is 100% minority, 100% of the children are on free lunch. No reduced, free. And then you have a Whitaker that's a mile, like 1.1 mile, and you got 98% of your children are white, and then less than 1% are on free or reduced lunch. That means something. You have a child that's being educated. There's some what I call reciprocity of learning there. So that white kid who vacations, who goes to summer camp, now is interacting with this kid who doesn't know about shrubs because they live in an apartment. And then they talk about not having enough to eat. There's some reciprocity of learning there. That child that's coming from a stabilized home is learning empathy because now they're going to school side by side. That kid who doesn't know what it means to go on vacation. A lot of our kids have never seen the ocean. They don't go to the beach. They don't. You got some reciprocity of learning there, which is also why the fools in charge are scared because you think about it, they didn't start talking about CRT until it was white women who were putting themselves between the protesters and the police during George Floyd. They was like, hold up. As long as it was y'all people, you people over there, we ain't care because we was about ready to pick off all y'all. But wait a minute, white women? Your white kids coming home calling you out? That's what that was like. Oh, we gotta hurry up.
Yeah.
So it's a lot to unpack there. Um, but I'm gonna keep saying this: nobody's coming to save us.
Say it again.
Nobody is coming to save us. You hold us accountable. I don't have a problem with being held accountable as an elected official and as somebody that's from the black community. Now, I don't always have all the answers, and sometimes I don't even know what some of the problems are. But if you bring them to me, I'll do my best to try to either help you directly or point you in the right direction. But nobody's coming to save us. So when you don't vote, and I've been talking about cuts and cuties, and that started from two. places. It started from something that we did at the school, for the start of the school, where we had barbers and stylists come in and do haircuts and hairstyles for the kids at the start of school. But I moved that into the community. And so now there's Cuts and Cuties conversations in the community that was a spinoff on what we did here.
Okay.
And talking to people in the community, not with my campaign shirt on or not as their representative, but I need to understand what is it going to take, because not voting is not an option.
I need to get with you anyway on that too
Yeah,
because I have something similar
yeah,
going on right now at Wiley Middle School
yeah. That's
with
not an
my
option.
aeronomic
Yeah,
program.
yeah. That's not an option, guys. We
Yeah,
can't, we said it. I mean, we showed
we got
up,
we got to look out for the cookout.
but the black men did not.
Mm.
And some of it was about not wanting to vote for a black woman. Let's keep it real. But guess what? Look what we got in return. Did you think that what he was going to do was going to help you more than what I get it. I went to school with her. So I get that some people may not have been able to feel her or feel the connection with her.
Yeah, because I ain't feeling.
No, that's real talk.
I mean,
But did you feel Trump? And he
I,
had a track record
I'm
too.
I'm gonna be real with you. I felt him more than I felt her
But you,
because
but tell me why.
because he was honest.
Yeah,
The honesty. He let me know who he was. He let me know who he is from off jump
he did,
from
and he
what he
let you know what he was gonna do.
right.
And
And I
then, and
and I
then,
respect that. But with her, she was always in the background, and then I felt like she should have embraced her Indian heritage more than
but did we
her
not?
saying that she's black when she's really not.
Right.
You
And so
know.
that's a rabbit hole we can go down, and I know you got,
Yeah, we
but
don't got that much time, but
but that is real, and that's what I was hearing, and that's what I was saying to people. But my pushback on that was, yeah, he was real. Yeah, he stood 10 toes down in his racist self. Yeah, he told you everything he doing. He told you, but he also lied.
let me also say one thing else too. I felt that by him being in power or being the president, it was
Again,
gonna wake our ass up so that we can come together
well, we're paying a high
and
price
do a thing. I mean,
for
that's
that.
cool. That's fine. That's fine with me. But it was gonna take something like this to shake our ass up to realize that we all we got.
Yeah, I don't know that I would have. I wish that we wouldn't have rolled the dice on that, right?
Well, I mean, yeah,
But I get it.
it's a little
No,
it's a little it sounds a little
no,
crazy, but
it's not. I mean,
I just feel like it was destined because we were veering away from it so far.
oh yeah. But keep in mind what I said earlier, right? If for all you Bible scholars, and I am not, I read the Bible just enough to stay saved on most
I got
days, right?
That's what I understand.
So this ain't no indictment about nobody and where they are in their religion. But if you study the word, right? This is not, I mean,
It's not
God,
no.
God, all of this is a part of what God has talked about in scripture. And when 45, 47 ran 4 years ago, right? For a second term, I remember my godmother saying, God has shown me that he's gonna win, right?
Mm.
And he's gonna get back in office. And so I was like, I don't know, mother. I don't know. There's some that more ignorance, right? Woman can pray down heaven. She said, well, I know what God showed me. So when he didn't win, she said, I know he didn't win, sweet baby, but I know what God showed me.
Mm.
She didn't make it to see him get reelected, but she understood this is all a part of a plan. And that's why I'm saying we can't just look at things in the natural. We have to look at things in both natural and spirit. So some folks need to get right.
Mm.
It ain't for me to,
Mm-hmm.
but if you study the word, none of this is new and unfamiliar, right? Um, And so that's real talk.
Yeah, that's real talk. That's
Right.
dirty talk right there.
Yeah. That's dirty talk right there. Yeah.
That's what's up. So, on that note, do you have any shout outs you want to say, or is there anything specific that you want to say to our people right now?
I do. I want to say this. I know for people that were heavily invested in making sure that Vice President Harris won, right? Particularly black women, we mobilized in a way like we
Right, y'all
always
sure
do.
did.
You
Y'all
know what
did
I'm
y'all
saying?
thing.
With this ludicrous talk about stand up, we was in there, right? When she didn't win, we took it personally, and it for a lot of us, it shut us down. I get it. I know her personally. We went to Howard together. She was my hallmate for 2
Oh wow,
years. We
that's
came
what's
in
up.
together, so she was my classmate. And
Okay.
so I felt that too, right? But I was hopeful.
And for those who don't know, we're talking about Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris, yeah. I was hopeful because to see her get that campaign up and get it running, right? But was not surprised. Here's why. Joe Biden stepped back and stepped down.
Mm-hmm.
Nancy Pelosi, nowhere to be found. Jim Clyburn,
Nowhere to
nothing.
be found.
So I felt like she was a setup to allow J- Biden not to defeat a loss, not to suffer a loss at the hand of Trump. That's just me. I'm a conspiracy theorist.
I
But
can
if
see that.
you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I was hopeful because we were out here hustling because we knew it was online. But I was not surprised. So this is what I told my sisters. We can rest on that because now white women, y'all gonna need to stand up and fight that. But we cannot rest on our community. We cannot rest on the things that we need to do to prepare our people for these next 4 years. We can't. Because here's what people ain't talking about. JD Vance is way more scarier than Trump
Mm.
because they've been grooming him for what Trump is doing.
Mm.
So don't take your eye off the ball because we got a clown in the White House, because we also got a strategist in the White House. So 2026 started on November 6th.
Huh?
2026 started on November 6th. We can't wait. People need to be organizing now. I told y'all the voter registration legislation is moving. They're trying to shut that down. Why? Because of the number of people. You got the pink vote out there doing a shout out to Q Shavers and Carolina Forward and the work that they're doing, right? You got NAACP now that's realizing we got to come from out of the community that we in and make it back to the streets. I done called out the Divine Nine, the Links, the Jack and Jills, the churches, the ministers' conference. No van should be sitting idle. We can't wait. I filed in December. Let me back up. I got sworn in January of 2025. I filed for reelection in December of 2025 for a March 2026 primary. We can't wait. We got to be organizing now, and we've got to do it. We've got to get back in community. Black folks, you can't. There's nowhere in this city that I can't go that I don't feel safe. Now, and I use a little wisdom depending on where I go. But we can no longer be afraid of our own. But we have gotten so far removed from the people that we need to be fighting for that we're scared.
Mm.
You can talk to a young person, but how do you talk to them? Oh, they might shoot me. Not if you come in love.
Yeah.
Not if you speak to the priestly ministry inside of them. Young lion, come here, let me holler at you for a minute. All right, Prince, I see you. That's speaking life into them. And that's what we got to get back to. I got some kids that will own their mama, as they like to say,
Mm.
will lay down their life because they know Miss Dr. Baker gonna go hard for them and their families.
Yeah.
I'm not scared. I'm not afraid to die. I know where I'm going when I die. I'm right. That's what we got to do. We can't be strolling to the polls with just us and churches. How about you get on the phone? Start calling the people that didn't make it back from COVID. One, you checking on them. And two, can we check your registration because they're purging the registration? Now, they know if they registered or not. You do too because you already done look. Oh, I'm not seeing it. So do you mind if somebody comes by, checks on you, but also get you registered? And oh, by the way, do you need a ride to the polls? It's not that hard. Divine Nine, I don't care if they ain't paid their dues. Now they might not be able to come and stroll and go to the picnic and all of that, but they still a member of your organization. You call the men and women on your roads and say, look, we know you're not financial, but this is bigger than Divine Nine. And
Right.
so can we check your registration? Can we, you know what I'm saying? We're connecting with people who we're already in relationship with. You don't have to worry about giving out people's information because you're inside the organization. These are the people that would be calling anyway. Huh. Churches. If you take your people to the polls, you ain't got to worry about an extra insurance policy to start your van and your buses because these are your parishioners. It's not hard, but there has to be a will, and we can't wait because I'm telling you, nobody's coming to save us. The Democratic Party, they're not coming to save us, not us.
Mhm. I,
Now, I said this, I'm gonna say this again. Where my camera? Right here.
mhm.
Act Blue. Vote4amberbaker.com. If you hear me, I need you to go to my website and click on my Act Blue link. And I don't care if you give me $2, $5, the most you can give me is $6,400. This work takes money. It's not just about running a campaign. It's about showing up in places like this. That's gas, right? You don't understand. For those of us who are doing the work, I don't have another job. I get paid less than $14,000 to do this work. Your donation doesn't feed my personal life, but it does allow me, as your elected official, to show up and do the work. So go to vote, the number 4, amberbaker.com, and click on that Act Blue link. My most precious donation came from one of my parents who gave me $2 for my campaign. And why is that precious? Because I know what it took for her to give me that too. But what she said to me is, Miss Dr. Baker, I need you to win because I believe in you. And I need you to say you believe in me. And you can give it to whoever you want. But I'm telling you that boots on the ground, I'm fighting for people in North Carolina. Period. And I need their help. And I need y'all to start organizing. And I need y'all to sheep begot sheep. So talk to your
Mhm.
people in your circle of influence. Y'all sitting around the barbershop, talk about it.
What's the estimation of the population of black folk here in Winston?
I was supposed to know that because somebody else asked me that.
Well, just an educated guess.
I'm not gonna do it, but
Okay.
we got enough people
What I was gonna say was just say if it was like 50,000 people, if
at
everybody
least.
gave $1,
Yes,
that's $50,000
absolutely.
that can go towards this cause.
Absolutely. And I was elected this year as the first vice chair for the Legislative Black Caucus. So we have done our first news conference to speak out about DEI. We're going to be working with South Carolina on some things. So some of you, if you're on social media, you might see they did their thing on the floor when their DEI bill hit. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Let's start calling it what it is so people know what them letters stand
Right.
for. And so we're standing in solidarity with them, but we're also in our caucus, in the Democratic caucus on the House side, is 49 Democrats, and 26 of them are blacks, and 17 of them are black men, and 9 are black women. So we are now the majority of the Democratic Party. I think it's the same as the true is true on the Senate side. It's 20 of them on the Senate.
Oh, you think we're in the wrong party? Are we partying in the wrong party?
What you mean?
Meaning, I know from history that the Republican Party is what we initially, the black folk was initially a part of,
Yeah.
and due to just within the past 50 years, the Democratic Party ain't really got a good name for itself.
Yeah, that's a fair question. Um, change can come from within and without. So if you gonna party over there, just don't drink the Kool-Aid.
You
You know what I'm saying?
heard it
So
first from Dr. Baker.
yeah, I'm not gonna discourage anybody from partying over there, right? Um, but they're using our black um, Republicans as puppets and to play in our face.
I got one more question.
Go ahead, it's your show.
Do you feel as blacks can we create our own party?
I think we can. I mean, now you're talking about some Marcus Garvey kind of stuff,
Yes,
right?
I am.
Um, y'all done made me pull out all my history
Pull it
lessons. Y'all
out.
done made me show people just how much I love history. Um, can we? Yes. Um,
Is it safe?
it's not unsafe. I think the problem is going to be what our problem always is that until we get united in us fighting harder for us, then we expect other people to fight for us. Um, it won't work, right? Because you're gonna have some people. I like being a Democrat. I don't know. I don't want to cause no problems. I like being. I mean, so I'm not gonna say it can't work, but I'm gonna tell you this. I've been spending a lot of time talking to young people, right? Because young people get a bad rep. They don't vote. They don't care about elections, and they're the problem, right? No, they're not. What young people are saying, we doing our due diligence, but
Right.
we not gonna vote. They
Right.
might pick might be independent, right? They might pick a Democratic ballot for because as an independent you have to choose. I think that should change. I think that would be a game changer.
Gotcha.
If you
Change. That's
if you were independent, you should have a blended ballot for primary. So you should be able to vote wherever you want to vote. You should have Democrats and Republicans on your ballot, and that would be a game changer,
okay.
right? But say they vote Democrat for the primary, right? But for the general, one they might just go in and vote for Miss Dr. Baker because they know her. She showed up. They like her. They know I'm doing the work, and then they gonna slide their little ballot on in there and turn around and walk on back out.
Gotcha.
They are more strategic and more um like middle finger to y'all if y'all don't show up. I mean, like they paying attention. So I want to know, what does campaigning to this next generation of voters look like? Because how we do it is not how they do it. But we don't know how they do it because nobody sit down and talk to them.
Well, I'm gonna tell you like this: as us as young adults, I think that we can reach the youth better
Yeah,
than the older.
absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? So, with that being said, we're gonna spark this thing off the right way,
Yeah.
and
And we had quite a few young people. We in that 17 men that got elected on the House side,
hmm
4 or 5 of them are under the age of 35.
wow,
That's amazing,
that's
right?
amazing.
A lot of blacks came from down east. That wasn't, we started out with black representation. That's what Wilmington was all about, right?
Right,
Too many
right,
black
right.
folks getting elected to office. So being intentional about going into communities and talking to people about the issues that affect them and being real about it and keeping people informed, right? Just because you got elected, I went up there thinking I was gonna get some things done. I'm still wanting to get some legislation done. I still want my summer learning bill passed. I still want the Crown Act passed. I still want the automatic expungement process to pass. And for that, I'm talking about housing. People who a lot of people don't know that if you get evicted, you got a record, right?
Mm.
Which is going to keep you from getting more houses. So I want an automatic expungement process that once you get, evicted, and we need to have some kind of way where you pay so much of that back bill, but then that's expunged from your record, onto right? The bill, because they saw that it was a good bill. They tucked the bill. They refiled the bill. And so I'm on as a co-sponsor, but it was my bill.
Let me ask you something. Is that the reason why a lot of these companies are not accepting Medicaid?
Correct. Because the reimbursement amount is so low that they can't afford to take Medicaid.
Right, because if you bring up Medicaid, they're like, psst,
Right. And
get out of
I
here.
was at a dental clinic on Friday, and one of the guys, this a dentist, told me that he just has decided that he's going to do so much in pro bono work. It's cheaper for him to do pro bono work than to deal with the Medicaid
Wow.
reimbursement.
I need
Yeah.
his number. Got a
He's
tooth need
he's
to be
he's
pulled.
down. Well, you should have been at that clinic on Friday, and I'm hoping
I
to
wish I was there. I wish I
bring
would
it.
have
Well,
known
I'm gonna
about it.
try to bring it to Winston. They are booked for 2025, and I'm gonna start a conversation in 2026. But they it's a 2 day clinic, totally free. They were doing X-rays, extractions. Um, if they pulled a tooth, they had a company that was making partials
Mm,
and it was all free.
mm.
So I feel, and it was at Williams, I think it was Williams Baptist Church in High Point, Black Church.
Are they gonna
Um,
do something like that here in Winston?
I'm bring up the conversation. There was Lady Leach, Charlotte Leach from a Morning Star, who do a lot of work in the community already. Morning Star was one of our partners for our backpack program. They were our sponsor, so they get it. The pastor gets it. He's really into us doing local missions. So they both serve on the ministers conference. So I'm gonna bring it up to the ministers conference because I think, and I'm gonna push my church to be the host site because St. Peter's
That'll
has the
be real.
space,
Yeah, they
right?
do. Yeah.
They have the space, and I think this is something that as a community we can do. But they several thousand people will be seen over that was seen over that 2 day period.
I might need to
Um,
bring that up to Bishop Matt
yeah,
over here at Union Baptist.
I, and he would, Union don't always play nice with others, but he would have to play with another church because
Well, I
Union
mean,
doesn't have the
we ain't
space.
got time to be playing no more.
You see what I'm saying? So Union, we would need them to be on board, but they would, again, if you don't care who get the credit,
Well,
we can get some things done.
the Lord
But
can give have the credit.
well, I'm just saying,
Give him the credit.
I'm just saying, you had to see it. And this church had they have a big like gym area, so they had the kitchen. So I'm gonna say it probably was their fellowship hall, but it was huge. They had all of this classroom space where they could do the examinations, and so again,
That's dope.
you see what I'm saying? St. Peter's is my church, but I also know that we have the space in the Family Enrichment Center. So this was taking place in their main sanctuary. We got a whole building that is not a nonprofit, which means we are not held to the same standard as as
I got you.
as the
I
nonprofit,
got you.
right?
I got you.
So it is going to take community if we want to pull this off to make it happen. And so again, it just happened on Friday. I haven't had a chance to have any conversations, but I immediately thought we need to have this in Winston.
Good, good. So, I just want to say this right here, on behalf of Dirty Talk, podcast. We're gonna set it off.
Let me see. What you do? What you do? What you do? He did it. He did it. Hold
We
on.
set it off. No, we did it. We did it. Special thanks to BP and QT, uh, I myself,
I know somebody else did too.
Big Ant, Duke, Christopher, Beats, the whole crew. The whole crew is Dirty Talk podcast
So,
this year.
and if you don't follow me on social media, my social media handle again is vote the number 4 Amber Baker on Facebook, on Instagram, um, on Twitter. I am Amber underscore M underscore Baker, and also please feel free to send me a text message to my legislative email to sign up for the newsletter. So my newsletter comes out twice a week. I mean, not twice a week. I'm sorry, biweekly, and it not only talks about the information that's happening up in Raleigh, but this week's edition had a number of events, including you'll start to see the signs around town about the rally that's taking place on Saturday. We also have links to all of the city pages. So the city of Winston-Salem, the county, Clemens, Louisville, Kernersville, links directly to their pages. We started something new this year called Spotlight on People in the Community. And ideally, I would like to feature young people, but not just young people, because we have some amazing people in the community that never get recognized for the work because they may not be in the right circle or they may not be connected to the right people. But I really want to highlight young people and the work that they're doing.
Well, let us know because we definitely
So if you
got our hands.
yeah, so if you send an email to my legislative email, it's amber.baker at ncleg.gov, and just put newsletter in the subject line. We'll know to add you to the newsletter. And again, lock that in anyway, because I represent District 72, but I right now have taken on a project. I don't know how I became kind of the champion for this, but I'm receiving a lot of letters from people that are locked up, and they're talking about the conditions that they are living through.
Could you say that email again?
It's Amber, Amber,
Mm-hmm.
dot Baker, Baker, at ncleg.gov.
At nc.gov.
ncleg.gov.
There we go. There she go. Okay, we got you locked in.
And man, this is always it always feels like I should be doing this more with you because you guys pull a lot.
Oh yeah.
It's always a lot that's pulled out, and I love being able to make sure that people can know what's going on. Pretty much, I'm not gonna filter my own stuff, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's our goal. I mean, that's our goal with Dirty Talk Pod is to get the word out
Yeah.
on what need to be heard.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, and if we're gonna inform people, we got to do it in a lot of different arenas. And I'm real
Specifically to our community.
correct, and I'm comfortable in all those spaces. Um, I jokingly tell people I got a foot in the liquor house, a foot in the White House.
I
Right?
like that.
I'm bilingual.
I like that.
And we have to be that way, I try to be real mindful of trying to keep it at a level where people can grasp it. Like the goal is not to show people how smart I am, right? I am smart.
Gotcha.
I don't have to.
Right, you wouldn't be in your position. You wouldn't have the title. I mean, that's real.
I am a duly elected individual, DEI.
Okay. Okay. Okay then.
Right.
Dr. Amber Baker, y'all.
Thank you guys.
For those who don't know, please subscribe to Dirty Talk Pod 336 on all platforms. You know what I'm saying? Don't hide it, divide it. Don't stare but share. All right?